time?
I really did. Well, our vehicle got knocked out and we bailed out. And then the guy scattered. And it was just a bad day. It was the worst day I think I ever had in the war. And Germans were shooting everything, dropping mortars and artillery. And our guys were doing the same thing. We just, it was just a bad day. And guys would be, running around scared to death and didn't know what they were doing. And so I don't know how I got away from the vehicle, but I got into one of these sunken lanes. Now, even the jury can't see you in there. He knows you're in there because that's a place to hide. So they shell them and rake them with machine guns. So I myself, I started up that sunken road, and I knew if I was going to live that day, I had to get out of that sunken lane. And I start up there and I see two guys from our platoon, new guys. I knew their names, but I don't think I'd ever talked to them. And they were the hedgerows were about 4 foot high. I don't know if you've probably seen pictures of them. And then on top of them are the hedges and the trees. And the roots are interwoven in that big embankment there. And the only way that you can get out of there is to kind of get up that embankment and get through the trees. But these two guys were just huddled up against that embankment, just scared to death. And when I saw them, I just kind of got up there close to them. I said, and they weren't even talking, they were so scared. I said, if we're going to live, we're going to have to get out of this sunken lane. And they just kind of nodded their head. And I said, they had never seen any action before. I said, you follow me. I said, we'll see if we can't get out of here. So we go up the hedgerow, and the Germans will be shelling in, and the machine guns going off, and our guys will be firing. And then we'd hit the ground when we heard a shell coming in. Then we'd get up and run a little more till I saw an opening in the hedgerow. So then I mentioned to them guys, I said, we're going to go through that opening. So then we got up there to where that opening was, and a couple more shells come in, so we hit the ground again. And then just soon as they've exploded, I'm up the bank to go through that hole in that hedgerow. And just as I got to the top of the bank, another shell hit up there. And just kind of threw me through that opening. Down on the other side, I tumbled on the other side. I was wounded, but not seriously. But I didn't look back. But I knew that I was wounded. And then the medics were there and picked me up and took me out of there and took me to a big first aid tent, big tent. And I went in there and they set the litter on the ground. Inside that big tent, all on the inside edge, is litters with the wounded. And then down through the center, they'll have things maybe about this high, 30 inches high, something like that. They're something like, what would I say? They're kind of a rough thing made to fit a litter, where they could sit the litter on there, then they operate on you. That was down the center. Then there was some GI nurses in there, women nurses, Then they operated on me. I remember they gave me a shot of Pentothal. I never had Pentothal before, but it was the best feeling, man. Man, you just kind of floated out of there. And when I woke up, I didn't have any clothes on, but I was on another litter and covered with a blanket. And then I was in another tent, and there was a few guys in that. They had just come out of the operating room. And then the C-47, the cargo plane, would come in and land in the field right alongside a tent. Then they would load you up and hang you on racks inside the C-47. But I was fortunate enough to get one near one of the little windows there, and I could look out when we were flying out of Normandy. And I could look down there, and I saw that hedgerow of country and stuff. And I remember the times we used to take being careful to cover ourselves so the Jerry planes wouldn't see us. And man, up there, of course, this plane is flying slow and low, And man, you knew then, man, that camouflage wasn't doing you much good. And this is what I said getting out of there. I just laid there in the litter looking out the window. I said, man, I'm glad I'm getting out of here, and I hope I never have to come back. Boy, was I glad to get out of there and get to England. when there was a little break in the shelling, we'd get up and run and then hit the ground. And I never looked back to see if they came through the thing or not. But when I got back to the company, then in September, I said, "What happened to Olson and Paulson?" One boy's name was Gilbert Olson, the other one Laverne Paulson. They said that they were killed. They never got through that hole. The same shell that wounded me and blew me through that hole wounded them, killed them. And when we hit the ground, Andy, we were that close that our bodies was touching one another. And I will give God the credit for that, man.
In a matter of
God
inches.
spared me. I was slightly wounded, but killed both of those. Yeah, and I thought about them a lot of years after the war.